Hello, this is Tamara Buchan with Reclaim Initiative. Today is Monday, October 18th, and it is day 15 as we journey towards a 2020 election. Passage into the Promised Land. We have a whole generation of Israelites who are preparing to cross over the River Jordan, which stood between them and the Promised Land, the very Promised Land that they'd heard about for their entire lives. You see, their parents and their grandparents who came before them, they had to wait for them all to die off because they were the generation of slavery. They were the ones that God miraculously delivered out of slavery and then took through the passage through the Red Sea, the miraculous crossing, as then the Egyptian army was utterly eradicated as the water closed in around them. So the first thing that Joshua told them they needed to do was purify themselves. And that was, I think, letting go of the old mindsets that they'd carried for the whole time they were in the wilderness, because they were entering the land of great provision. And the second thing is to embrace the new land that they were going to and the new ways that they would be called to live. And that's really what these 30 days are all about, is preparation, that we leave the old mindset behind of the season that has been deconstructing, and we enter into the kingdom age where we're asked to adopt a whole new mindset and whole new priorities in the kingdom realm. And then the second thing that Joshua tells them is important is to remember and to believe God's promises. And that is key for us. We must remember and believe the promises that we've been given so we can recognize them and enter into them as they manifest. So in Joshua 3, 9 through 13, it says this: So Joshua told the Israelites, "Come and listen to what the Lord your God says. Today you will know that the living God is among you. He will surely drive out the Canaanites, Hittites, Hivites, Perizzites, Girgashites, Amorites, and Jebusites ahead of you. Look, the Ark of the Covenant, which belongs to the Lord of the whole earth, will lead you across the Jordan River. Now choose 12 men from the tribes of Israel, and let the priests carry the ark of the Lord of all the earth. As soon as their feet touch the water, the flow of water will be cut off upstream, and the river will stand up like a wall, much like the Red Sea." And that's just great that they've been given this promise, but now they have to act on the promise because it's harvest season and the river is overflowing its banks. And so they have to step into a flooding river, basically, and expect the water to stop. And the first ones in are going to be carrying the Ark of the Covenant, and they don't want to lose the Ark of the Covenant, the place where God's presence dwells. So step into the challenge, which always includes overcoming fear and trusting God's promises and His provision. And so they had to be ready. And as they did it, the water stopped, and an entire nation crossed over from the old season into the new season. The next instruction that Joshua had for them was to create a memorial so that they could leave a testimony for others and future generations to hear the stories. And so in Joshua 4, 21 through 23, it says this: Then Joshua said to the Israelites, "In the future, your children will ask, 'What do these stories mean?' Then you can tell them, 'This is where the Israelites crossed the Jordan River on dry ground. For the Lord your God dried up the river right before your eyes, and He kept it dry until you were all across, just as He did at the Red Sea when He dried it up until we had all crossed over. He did this,' listen, 'so that all the nations of the earth might know that the Lord's hand is powerful, and you might fear the Lord your God for forever.'" God does these miracles so we might know Him, and so others might know it. He wants to demonstrate His presence and His power amongst us. And I believe that in this season of the election, we are in a crossing over time where he wants his people to pray and to partner with him so that he can bring a miracle of a different result than where we see the world heading. We are one step closer to embracing and breaking in of the kingdom age. And right now there is so much division. It's a time of great upheaval. I have to say, I've been seeing visions when I pray about what happens after the election, of a time of much upheaval and division and violence. And this is the deal. We have two narratives that are taking place right now, and they don't meet in any way. They're two very different narratives that are leading people in very different directions. And amazingly, I just watched a documentary called Social Dilemma. I highly recommend it because social media is feeding us what we believe and feeding more and more and more of it just to entrench us in our views. And so these alternative narratives or alternative realities are just entrenching people even more. That's why it's so key that we go up higher and we seek the heavenly vantage point. And that's really simple. It just means asking Jesus, what do you see? What do you see? And he wants to tell us, just like Ezekiel 37. I encourage you to read the first half of that chapter, because he took Ezekiel up high and he said, Ezekiel, what do you see? And he showed Ezekiel the landscape. And then he told Ezekiel, here's what I want you to do. And Ezekiel, here's what I want you to say. And Ezekiel said it, and then it happened. He wants to partner with us, but it starts with the heavenly vantage point of seeing what the Lord sees and partnering with him to call it forth. So this is a time to be the covenant people of God, who rise higher and who partner with God to create a different narrative, not the ones that social media are entrenching us in, but his narrative, his reality, the thing that's true. And we, as God's people, can call that to earth, the kingdom of God on earth. And I do believe that this is the solution, the way through the sea, the way through the river, the flooding river, is to follow God in his narrative, to speak it forth and release it so that we don't end up with massive chaos and massive division where people are more and more entrenched in their belief systems, but we're able to rise higher into the unity and oneness that the Lord has called us and created us to live. And because of that, I'm calling all of God's kingdom people to pray, especially together on Sunday, November 1st, which is actually All Saints' Day. And I see that as a wonderful day for all the saints of God to come together and to ask, what do you see and what do you want to do here, Lord? And then to call that forth. So as we begin this new week, let's begin it with an intentionality, not to let our beliefs get more entrenched by cable news and social media, but to let the Lord continue to give us a new vision, a new landscape, and a new pathway through the river.